Back for the release 2021 Wave 1 notes. I guess we could call this some sort of a Business Central party, since it only happens twice a year.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite days of the year.
We got about 40 different things we want to talk about. Some interesting, some fun, some boring. But, nonetheless, we got to bring you the information because that's what we do.
You be the judge.
Yes.
We're not going to, what's boring, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly. So we're going to kick it off with starting with the administration area. The first one on what's new is you can reassign an environment from one Azure Active Directory organization to another by using Microsoft support. It's kind of self-explanatory, but, for example, if you have company ABC and you get bought out by another company and it changes to company XYZ, right. You weren't really able to change the URL and certain things about it for the name. What kind of struck me about this is that they had this in the past where you could use Microsoft and they would migrate from one to another.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure that this is migrating as it is linking. They use the term linking.
Yeah.
So it might be a little bit different.
Yeah, and sometimes too, I think sometimes organizations just set up their Business Central environment incorrectly, and so you go, oh, well, we didn't realize we should have hooked this up through our Active Directory.
Yeah.
So let's do that now, and you can kind of just switch it and transfer it.
So pretty big improvement. Next up, we got improve the reliability of the database export operation for larger databases with more companies. I haven't particularly seen this where you're exporting a large database and it times out on you, but I know the frustration of doing anything with software or computers when something times out as you're waiting for it, and then it just stops. So hopefully if it's an issue for some, it gets corrected.
Yeah, it's kind of a buzzkill too. Yeah, and this is really relevant for people who are using the Business Central database backup feature that they just came out with a few releases ago. Like that creates the backpack backup format. When you had a huge database, I guess there were issues. So they're working on those issues, and they're going to be resolved.
And that's what we'd like to hear.
Yeah.
Next up for an administration feature, we've got improvements for the delegated administrators. Me personally, I know that in the past we're not allowed to really go in and change like the user experience for a customer or whatnot. So hopefully that's one of the things that gets changed here. And there's another. You can also it's going to change something with the setup and manage of the job queues.
Yep. Yeah. So this is marked as one of my favorites on the list today, and so a lot of times one of the areas that we often have to help users with is setting up and managing what's called the job queues. Job queue is how we automate tasks to be scheduled on a recurring basis. And as a partner, our ability to do those things was limited because of how we are accessing the customer's environment. So they've actually added more authority and access for us to do certain things on the customer's behalf. Nice. Ultimately, it just means that you can get better support and help from your partners.
Right. It's a little bit easier for the partner too then.
Right.
All right. Now we're moving into the application enhancements.
Always the most popular.
Yeah, you're especially in that mine, so you're going to hear a lot from Ken during this part. First one we got is new is the changes in synchronization between contact and customer. Ken, describe what it is, and I'll tell you my thought.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, this is one of like, it kind of in the weeds. When you set up a customer, you set up a primary contact. And then there was functionality in there that would kind of keep those addresses and information in sync.
Right.
And that may not always be something you want to do, right? So what this does is it kind of changes that relationship between the customer and the contacts. And it changes the presentation on the customer card too. So you can kind of see that the customer has an address and information, and then you assign a primary contact.
Gotcha.
To the customer.
So in my notes, I have thoughts. Is this good that this no longer syncs, though? I mean, is that a good thing?
Overall, yeah. I think so. So just because, someone's phone number changes on a contact, that doesn't necessarily mean you want it to update on the synchronized record all the time.
Okay,
So,
gotcha.
I think it is. It's something like, why is it automatically updating that over here when I update it over there?
Okay.
So, I think so.
All right, next up we've got the automatic creation of lot and serial number information cards. To me, it's a good thing. It basically just adds an option on the item tracking code to where you can turn it on or off.
Yeah. If I had to guess, and I could go confirm this, but I haven't had time. This is a feature request through the Business Central Ideas site that came up. So if that's the case, thank you, users. And if not, thank you, Microsoft. This is a dream come true for me.
Really?
Maybe a little hyperbole there.
Was this something found in that?
It is. This is a huge issue. So take a company that does lot tracking, right? And they do metals. So when they receive in a coil of steel, for example, you have a lot number for that coil, but you probably also have some other information about it. Maybe some chemical properties of it, the heat number, some other information. Okay. The lot information card, which is what this refers to, or it could be a serialized item, that's where you can add that type of information, store comments, add other fields. And up until now, the system did not, when you received in a lot of an item, it didn't automatically build those lot information records. So you couldn't track this other information. Now you check the box and say, yes, I want the system to automatically create a lot information record for me.
It'll track it all.
And now it builds that, so now I can go into there and track this other information.
Wow.
And it's so for those companies that do lot tracking or serial tracking, almost always they have some other related information that they want to store with those lot or serial numbers. So this is again on my favorites list here.
Nice, very nice. All right, next up we got assisted setup helps move the task of adjusting item costs to the background. My notes say that in the past, Microsoft suggested using job queue entries to move the tasks to run in the background to help increase the performance of Business Central. But I guess it was pretty complicated and kind of hard to do. So they're coming out with this then.
And this kind of, in a way, ties back to the one about allowing partners to help set up job queues, right? They're saying, turn off real-time automatic cost adjustments, right? And go do it in the job queue.
Yeah.
Well, users didn't know how to go do that.
Right.
So what they've added is when you turn it off or uncheck those fields, set the field to never or uncheck the automatic cost posting, it launches a little wizard that walks the user through a couple clicks on setting up that job queue to run the adjust cost process on a nightly basis, for example.
And this is all geared towards performance, right?
Correct. Yeah, because every time you post a transaction that has to do with inventory, you can decide through the inventory setup, do you want the system every time you post something to run through the cost adjustment routine to make sure your costs are up to date and accurate? Or do you want to skip that step and maybe just only do it once a night? Because you really don't need it up to date throughout every day.
Gotcha.
Right. So yeah, it would boost the performance and speed up your posting process.
Because it's not running yet. Yeah. All right. Next up, more control over settings for default dimensions. I am respectfully going to defer to the specialist, Ken Sebahar.
Yes. So this is another favorite here. So my third, I think, favorite that we've gone through here. And again, user community, if you're responsible for this, thank you. Microsoft, if you're responsible, thank you. So here's the scenario in this case. So what you've been able to do up until now is define that a specific dimension code is required whenever you post a transaction, let's say to a certain GL account. But you really couldn't limit the user to which values could be selected. You just say that you can't, for example, let's say you have a GL account called warehouse supplies. You could go into the warehouse supplies GL account and say, you must specify a department code when you use this account. But that was about it. And it would just force the user to pick one. Now, what you can do is you can say, yes, a department code is required when posting to the warehouse supplies account, but you can only use certain departments.
Gotcha.
For example, you can't pick the sales and marketing department because that doesn't make sense. The sales and marketing doesn't have warehouse supplies. So you could go in and say only the warehouse and production departments are valid department codes for the warehouse supplies account.
That's pretty cool.
This is something, again, that people have been clamoring for years. So now we have this control in place where we can actually restrict and make sure, really eliminating errors and people accidentally picking the wrong departments.
I'm kind of surprised that that's not part of functionality that has already been.
As are most people when they hear that that's not right.
Pretty crazy.
Yep.
All right, next up, define lot sizes for various stages of production. I basically took this as it's now easier to define, the lot sizes on multiple pages.
Yep. So you can say not only on your routing lines, but routing versions or the planning worksheet or production order routing itself. So on a per production order basis, you could say this is my lot size. So that the batch size, if you will, of how many we want to be we're going to produce here.
All right.
So.
Moving right along to simplified bank statement file import. I would imagine this one might make a lot of people that handle the finances pretty happy. So you can now import CSV or .txt bank statement files, and then so what you can do is then map the columns to the fields in Business Central. Am I understanding it right?
Yep. So at least in North America, there's no global standard for how a bank delivers an electronic file with transaction activity in it, right? For bank recs. This allows users to go in and actually do that mapping based on these file formats by themselves. So,
do you think there should be a global standard?
Absolutely. Right?
I mean,
why not? There should be a global standard for a positive pay file, an ACH file, bank statement, file downloads, all of these types of electronic communications. Now, there are standards out there, but what we found is that most banks have some sort of uniqueness to them.
Really?
Right? Different file structures and file formats that they're using.
So it makes it a little bit difficult.
We're marching towards the standard,
but
we're not there yet.
Gotcha. All right. Next, we got payment reconciliation journal improvements. Once again, I'm going to defer right to Ken for this one.
Yeah, so this was a feature that was put out maybe just a couple of years ago. They're adding some things like enabling preview posting in the payment reconciliation journal page, also providing a separate number series to track your transactions through here, and user-defined document numbers. And then you can select multiple lines to transfer your differences to a journal. I'm not sure how relevant this is because I don't know how many people are actually using this feature. So if I had to guess, not that many, at least not in North America currently. But maybe I think down the road that'll be something that's, and again, as they make it more useful and add more features to it probably will be more widely adopted.
So what do you think about the next one up, bank reconciliation improvements? Is that more relevant?
Absolutely. Well, everyone hopefully is reconciling their bank statements, right?
True. Hopefully, right?
Hopefully, And I think it seems, I'm going to tell you, every single release that comes out, there's an application improvement for bank reconciliation improvements, right?
Yep, everyone.
Because,
no doubt about it.
Because bank reconciliation is a difficult process for accounting people to do. So it has to be made simple. There's auto matching features, so it kind of helps show you how the matching is working. And one of the best things is you can now, so let's say you create your bank rec and you actually post it. You actually now can effectively do a correction. You can unpost your bank rec and then redo your bank rec.
Yeah.
And that's huge because up until recently or now, once you post the bank rec, it is posted.
So was that part of the minor major release? Or major minor?
That one, I think relatively recently, yeah. So they're continuing to improve the bank rec, and that's a great.
Definitely. Yeah. Next, we got dimension correction for GL entries, and I got here a new correct dimensions action on the general ledger entries page will allow you to correct dimensions on posted entries by editing the dimension value, adding new dimensions, or removing them.
Yeah. So what this says is you can now go to a GL entry, posted GL entry, and there's a new action to correct your dimensions. And right in there, you can go in and you can just change. Maybe someone posted that sale to the wrong customer group, which was set up wrong, or a department or something. You can go just edit the dimensions on a posted transaction. So you also can block corrections, right? Or so you could say, we do not want to allow users to go in and make corrections, right? So you can turn this off.
Yeah.
And you can also specify that corrections must respect closed accounting periods. So you could say, once we've closed the accounting period, you no longer can go back and make corrections. So only in open periods.
Okay. So very, very nice. Well, we can all take a little bit of a deep breath now. We got through the application enhancements.
Whew.
And now we're
what did I have? So we got the dimensions one. That was one of my favorites as well. So I had that. That's one of my favorite changes. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 so far. So 4 favorites. I think those are major kind of improvements and things that I know the user community has been asking for for a while.
So next up, we're going to be moving into the area of better with Microsoft 365. And first up is support cloud printing using the new Microsoft Universal Print. I do not know too much about the Microsoft Universal Print, other than it's going to allow you to send documents and reports to any of the printers that you have set up within it, and you can print, I guess, mobily, if you would.
Yeah, from your app, right?
Yeah.
So I think up until now there's been issues, or, limitations on users being able to select printers when you're using the Business Central app. And so what this does is this hooks up with a new Microsoft Universal Cloud Print service where you can set up, make your printers accessible. So that if I'm on my phone, I want to print a sales order confirmation to the printer, you now basically can do that.
Good feature, especially with the more and more use of mobile technology in the world.
Yeah.
All right, next up we've got look up Business Central contacts from within Microsoft Teams. And as everybody knows, I love the integration between Business Central and Teams.
Is this your number one?
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's not number one. I don't know if I didn't rank them in order, but it's one of my favorites. So, if you've ever wanted to make a call to one of your Business Central contacts while you're in Microsoft Teams, in the past you'd have to switch from Teams to Business Central to get the contact information and whatnot. Now you can really just look up the contact information right from Microsoft Teams and make the call from within the app. So it saves time, makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, and that's, again, I think more and more people are using Teams. I was just having a conversation yesterday. We were talking about communication methods and use of cell phones. And I said, I'm going to be honest with you. Most of my time is not on my cell phone, even if I'm working remotely. It's through Teams.
Yeah. I actually prefer it.
I'm calling and working through Teams, right?
I prefer it because, you're working on your laptop and the phone call comes right through Teams. And when it's the phone, you got to kind of just stop looking at the screen. You got to answer the phone. Some people have to put headphones in and whatnot. So, all right. Next up, enablement of word merge into Business Central. So really what this is for is if you want to send a document to a bunch of people, you can kind of personalize the document by adding, say the first name or the company name, and then it creates a more personal aspect when you send a document out.
Yep. So this kind of restores actually functionality that has existed for many years within Dynamics NAV,
Yeah.
where you can create within the CRM, sales and marketing area of Business Central, you could create a campaign segment to target a group of contacts, and you build your message in a Microsoft Word document.
Yeah.
And now, you kind of merge in the name, your salesperson name, and phone contact information.
Whatever it may be.
Whatever it is. And again, I always use this, I will use this as an opportunity to trumpet the availability of CRM direct functionality directly within Business Central,
Yeah.
right?
It's there and, works for most companies, right?
Yep.
All right. So, done with the Better with Microsoft 365 area. And one quick little tidbit about the country and regional areas that Business Central is now expanding into India, Greece, Turkey, and Romania, I believe. So if you're in one of those countries, jump up and down because you got Business Central pretty soon.
And that brings the total availability to 52 countries and regions.
Wow.
It's time for the Stump Michael question.
Oh,
Today,
man. Oh, man.
of the 4 new countries that are being available, you have Romania, Turkey, Greece, and India. Which of these 4 localization solutions is a localization solution provided directly by Microsoft versus being a partner-led localization?
Well, Ken, I do not know, so I'm going to just guess
You
out
got
of
a
the blue.
25% chance.
I do. I'm going to say Greece. And I can tell by the look on your face I'm wrong.
It's India.
It's India.
Yep. So Microsoft is developing and supporting the India localization, which on all 4 of these are built on the worldwide Business Central solution. The other 3 are just partner-led efforts. So.
Full disclosure, I chose Greece because I remember years past they had used the island of Crete for like a code name or whatever it was. And I guess it's some island.
Madeira.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Madeira. Yeah. So
many of them. There's many of them. Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Or is that Italian, Greek? I think it's Greek.
Crete one? Yeah, I think it's Italian or Greek. Yeah. So I'm about 0 for 10 on Stump Michael questions. It's good. Real confidence booster. All right. Next up, we got we're moving to the Microsoft Power Platform area and enhancements. We've got synchronized item availability from Business Central to Dynamics 365 Sales. Now, I know that I would imagine a lot of people who use Dynamics 365 Sales with Business Central are going to love this because when you change something in Business Central, item-wise or whatever, it's going to automatically show up in D365 for sales. So if you're a salesperson and you're quoting something and you want to know if you have items on hand or whatnot, this should show exactly what you have in real time.
Yep.
Next up, we've got then the Enable Power BI connector to work with Business Central APIs instead of with web services only. So there is no more need to rely on web services only to integrate Business Central and Power BI because you basically can now use the Business Central APIs.
And this is all about performance. So the idea is that the APIs will perform better.
Nice. All right. Now we're going to go into virtual tables for the Microsoft Dataverse. And it's funny because in my notes, it's what is Microsoft Dataverse?
See, good thing we talked about that already.
We did, yeah. I defined it and whatnot. So, but this is one of your favorites. So jump on in and.
Yeah. So virtual tables for Microsoft Dataverse. So first of all, just to recap, Dataverse is just common data services. Mm-hmm. So they've been doing it with that. They've just renamed it. And I have this as one of my favorites. And the reason I do is because in previous efforts where we went in and we were trying to develop, use Power Automation and Power Apps, we ran into some issues, limitations with integrating those with Business Central, because we needed virtual tables in order for our solutions to work, and it wasn't supported. So we basically hit a roadblock, and Microsoft has recognized that and now has addressed it. So I think it's we're moving in that direction where customers, users, and partners are going to be able to do more in integrating the Power Apps, Power Platform solutions with Business Central for custom building workflows and other notifications.
This might be a little bit off topic, but I'm going to be one of the first to say that, to me, Power Apps or Flow, whatever you want to call it, used to be, it's not as easy as it's made out to seem. You know, you get in there and you create whatever, but there's a lot of connectivity issues and whatnot. Maybe it's my lack of knowledge for it, but even with simple things, I have issues sometimes with it.
Well, right. So yeah, and I think, you know, it's easy to go out to YouTube and watch a video that shows someone creating a customer list page on a Power App, right?
Right.
But how about entering a sales order? Right. Or doing a physical inventory count with lot numbers tracking.
Right.
It quickly, the level of complexity quickly skyrockets when you get to a multi-table situation or a situation where you have to use a temporary table or virtual table to store data that you can then work with and get to a result. So, right. It's
always the easiest.
They call these solutions low-code solutions, right? Not no-code.
Right.
They can't go there. But in theory, with low-code meaning that some of the heavy lifting background stuff is done automatically for you. But your business logic, it's still kind of like you need that developer mindset to understand how to write a query.
Right.
Or a statement that marches through some commands.
Yeah.
So it's that's when they say, when you hear the term low code, that's what that's in reference to.
Yeah. Still means take a deep breath, look at what you're doing.
It
might not be as easy as you think it is.
Yes, that's right.
YouTube's not helping you right now. All right, moving into the modern client enhancements. We've got enable cloud printing on mobile app, and this is for your phone and tablet. We kind of talked about it earlier. Yep. But one thing to note is that you can also print from Microsoft Teams. Yep. Let's say you got Business Central open in Microsoft Teams on your app. You can actually print from Teams to a printer.
Yep.
And next up, as always, client performance improvements. So to increase performance on the Role Center pages, the entire page is not going to load, I guess, as it has in past. Only what you see on the screen is what will load, and as you scroll down, the rest will load. So initially, when you first get to that page, it should load pretty quick. Next up, usability enhancements for Business Central Web Client. So I guess drilling down into most records is going to be easier, because I guess you can just double-click the empty space and drill down or open it up or whatnot.
Yeah, and then working when you have a reduced browser width or zoomed in screens, better look and feel. So these are just some little things that's like people are used to, right? When you open a list page, you just want to double click on that line and have it launch. So it'll just whatever the default page action is when you on that page, when you double click on it, that's what will happen. So on most like list pages, it'll just launch the card.
Gotcha. Next up, users can change the assigned printer before printing a report. Pretty self-explanatory, I guess.
Yeah, and it says this only applies to cloud-enabled printers. So it kind of gets into the cloud printing solution when you're in the app. It's kind of hard to believe you couldn't change a printer in that scenario beforehand, but apparently you couldn't.
I couldn't tell you. I never tried it, I guess. All right, next we've got Report API allows passing the layout needed for report execution. I will happily defer to you on this one.
So when you're generating the report, you could actually have different layouts available for for the same report. There's a table called report layout selections, and it's possible to have different layouts. So now they're saying the user, like for example, sales order, you could have 3 different sales order layouts. Mm-hmm. One of them is the default, that's the one that's always going to print. This allows you to set that as you're actually printing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this is one of those that I'm not sure how many people actually use multiple report layouts.
Right.
You know, for things like if I have an invoice,
usually
I have one invoice that I use
right.
across the board. So,
but it's there if you need it, I guess.
If you're using it, yep.
All right.
Someone asked for it.
Next up, we got reports run in the background. So you can basically just continue to work as this system runs the report for you.
Right. Yep. And then, so what happens is then the report runs in the background. Because some reports, I mean, if you have a 50 gigabyte database and millions of inventory transactions, when you run your inventory valuation report, I mean, it's got a lot of data it's got to crank through, right? So it's not going to be 5 seconds. So what this does is it just kicks that report into the background. You keep working.
Yeah.
Who cares how long it takes now?
Right.
What happens now, you'll get a notification that says your report is ready, and then it's sitting on your roll center in the reports inbox.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right.
And that's one of my favorites.
It is one of your favorites. I missed it, yeah.
Why? Because think about someone who's in the accounting department, for example, and they're at month end, and they have to run a bunch of reports, reconcile AP, AR, inventory, blah blah blah, right? Run all these reports. If you're sitting there waiting for those reports to generate, you're just sitting there, right?
Can't do anything
waiting. I mean, I guess you could have another session open, but this just makes it easier, and you're significantly more efficient.
Definitely.
By doing this. Yeah.
So next up, we've got return record link instead of name when using lookups. I took this just to be as, find what you're looking for easier because it's going to return more options, I guess.
It actually has, it has to do with that find as you type feature.
Okay.
And how the code is handling that to identify those records. Making sure that the correct record is identified. Because it's possible you could be searching and you've got multiple records that have the same name, for example, or description, but a different number.
Okay.
So I think that there were some funky results happening because it was not identifying the correct record. So I think this is just one of those, let's just classify this under the boring category.
All right. Next up, I see we've got one of Ken's favorites, and that is the report extensibility. I also saw on the interwebs that this was one of the more popular features.
Yeah.
So you could talk about it.
Yeah. So let's say for example, you have, that's just any report, aged accounts receivable report. So you run your AR aging report regularly, and you request a change to, I don't know, add the customer email address to that report. Up until now, if you want to make any change to that report, whether it's the data set that's used and the fields that are available or the layout, you would have to make a full copy of that report. And now in the copy, you make your change. Well, what that means is you're now running a completely separate report. Mm-hmm. So if in the next release there's a change or an improvement made to the base report, you're not getting it on your custom report because you had to make that change. What this now adds is the ability to build what's called a report extension object. So you actually can make that change. You're still using the base report, and you've extended the base report. So now when Microsoft makes changes or improvements to the report, those are getting inherited into the report you're running.
So you're basically not taking ownership of it.
You're
just-
eliminating
yeah.
the need to create custom reports
Gotcha.
outside of the standard report structure.
Nice.
Right.
Real nice.
Very nice.
All right. Moving right along, we've got extension validation on upgrade. And I have here, see tenant upgrade failures before they happen. A new per-tenant extension validation service will be created that validates applications on different aspects. Pretty excited to see how that one works.
And the key here is, when are those validations done? They're done
Before.
when the upgrade is scheduled.
Oh,
So in advance of it attempting to upgrade your environment, when they schedule the upgrade of the environment, it will run through all these extensive validations
and let you know. if you
and
have an
check
issue.
for these potential issues and notify you at that point.
Nice.
So you're not getting to the point where your environment's going to get updated and then you find out that you've got a potential issue.
Nice.
So
Next, we've got interface obsolete support. No clue what this is.
yeah, Let's-
Just
again,
got question marks there.
boring.
Yeah.
All this says is that interfaces can be obsoleted like other AL object types. So let's just leave it at that.
All right. Moving right along to things that I just don't know anything about. Partners can add keys to base tables and table extension tables.
This is the number one change and improvement
Really?
for me.
Oh, do explain.
So let's say that a customer has a table, item ledger entries, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
and they have millions of entries in there. Microsoft delivers Business Central with certain indexes or keys on that table that allow it to sift through the data very quickly. Well, let's say you want to build a report that's based on those item ledger entries that uses a field that's not included in one of those keys,
Okay.
right? When you have huge data volumes, without a key on that field, it takes a very long time
Okay.
to run that report or a query or whatever it is. And one of the significant potential issues was that you couldn't add a new key to the table, to a standard table, because Microsoft's protecting that standard table. Now you could add a key on that new custom field that you've added that you want to now build a report on. So the performance zips.
Gotcha.
And so now, by being able to add those keys, this is one of the, in my opinion, one of the last potential points of resistance to moving to Business Central Online.
Really? So what do you think is going to increase speed for the reports by what, 20, 50% more?
No,
Exponential?
it could be thousands of percents
Really?
faster.
Wow.
Yeah, right? You've added a custom field to the item ledger entry table called, item group or something for some reason, and now you want to build a report off of that. If you had to go through 5 million ledger entries to grab that data and sort it and group it by your custom field, it has to continuously go through all these records. By having an index or key on it, it has pre-organized the data in the database in a way that it can
Just
quickly pull the data right off of there.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
So that is
You heard it first. That's your number one.
That's my number one. Right.
All right. So now we're going to move into the onboarding enhancements. And the first one is improve the experience of getting started with Power BI. So basically to simplify users and their use of Power BI, getting started with Power BI is now going to run as a wizard and take you through all the necessary steps to set up and integrate Power BI.
I think there was already a wizard. I think they've improved it and simplified it. This also includes added guidance for those customers who are running Business Central on-premise. There's added guidance about Azure Active Directory registration.
Yeah.
because you have to. That's one of the caveats.
Mhm.
If you're running Business Central on premise, to use Power BI with it, you have to have Azure Active Directory authentication
Yeah.
set up.
I think that's where the value really is in letting people know that. All right. Next, we've got a getting started checklist for guided and faster initial setup. I kind of have mixed thoughts on this one. Why set the expectation that the customer can do more and more themselves? Some can, most cannot, right? But, maybe it's good for them to have a checklist that work in tandem with the partner to go over it.
Well, and I think you're exactly right. And if you parse out the description of this carefully, I think you're exactly right. So it says the getting started checklists allows partners to bring checklists to the customer that enable the customer to complete the last mile setup by themselves, not to depend on a consultant partner. So these are tools that partners themselves can build for their client bases to help them get it up and running more quickly. So
if you have control over it,
so
you can,
those are provided by your partner. So you have to rely on your partner for it, right?
Okay.
Now it's a tool that your partner can provide to you that will ultimately need you to use less consulting services.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be engaged with your partner, right, in the first place,
Right.
to get that getting started checklist from them that they may have developed. And also, but I do completely agree. I think that it's a little dangerous to imply that that you can get completely up and running and live without the assistance of a partner.
Yeah, and I mean, we all know this. The way Microsoft seems to market Business Central is it's relatively easy to use. You can set it up yourself. That seems to be the perception from a lot of people that we kind of talk to,
Right.
which is kind of bad to have that perception, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so hopefully this isn't adding to it.
Yeah, and is it possible to get started up and running on your own? Of course.
Yeah.
And no one's going to dispute that. However, the majority of people are not going to be able to get the system up and running with it configured and set up with their business processes defined in a way that allows them to operate efficiently without someone who understands and has experience with doing it.
Exactly. Even if you're tech savvy or have tech savvy people at your company, you don't have the experience of the actual software. So, All right. Next, we've got in-app contextual help improvements. Once again, could be bad or could be good. Anything that helps, I guess, the customer learn and whatever is a good thing.
Yep. So I'm picturing these. There wasn't very much information on these, but visual aids that can be authored by partners who want to put those in apps. But visual aids to help call out new features and how to get started using them. I'm guessing these are like notifications and messages that are going to pop up on the ribbon that kind of prod people to check some new features out.
Yeah. All right. Last but definitely not least is improved company setup experience. I didn't think it was too difficult before. I guess if you're just creating the company, so I'm interested to see how much more simple it can be.
Right. Not many details here.
No, not at all.
But yeah, to your point, there is a kind of initial company setup wizard that you can put into place. My own personal opinion, it was a great start. I'm looking forward to this because I think that could have been expanded so much more. There's so much more potential for walking through that.
Oh, so you're saying add more things to the wizard?
Yeah, like what about setting up your payment terms, your shipment methods, your shipping agents? Right? Make sure your users are all set up in there. I mean, there's a laundry list of potential topics and paths you could guide the users down when they're setting up the system to make sure it's all set up right.
Nice. Well, there you have it, everybody. The 2021 Release Wave 1 features overview presented by the specialist Ken Sebahar and the not so specialist,
come
Michael
on.
Intravartolo.
Come on, you're being modest.
Yeah.
No, and I think so. If I could kind of recap all of these, I think that the total number of new features
Mhm.
or changes is lower
Yes.
than in some of our prior major
Yeah.
releases. But in terms of features and functionality that's being delivered, it's at least, especially in the application area,
Yeah.
some of these new features and things, again, the little things that users of Dynamics Business Central have been asking for years
Right.
are now just, they're turning those into standard features. And I think it's because of the user community and the Business Central Ideas site,
Mm-hmm.
where people are going in, they're putting suggestions, and people are voting on them.
Yeah.
And Microsoft is listening and turning those into valuable features.
Right. So hopefully they've got the software to the point where it's running really good, and it really is running really good. So now they have more time to focus on the features that other people want.
Right.
Plus, I think going forward, these major releases, release wave 1 and wave 2, might not have as much features if they intend to put more feature releases inside the minor updates.
Right.
Because we saw, I think it was 17.2,
Mhm.
it had a lot of feature updates or whatnot. So
Yeah.
it's kind of taken away from, the wave 1 and whatnot. But
Yeah, but this is a great set. I mean, some
Yeah.
of these that were on here are I mean, I was, I don't know how, maybe it's sad or strange, but how excited I was to see some of these things.
Whenever anybody
Like,
says
how lame
dimensions,
am I?
you
Like,
light up though.
What a nerd,
No.
Oh, a lot
You
of
got the
information
ear to ear
cards.
smile, yeah.
Bring it on. But when you do this every day, and I know that
It's the
we've
little
got,
things that excite you.
you've got hundreds or thousands or hundreds of users that who every day are using these things, and that these are things that they're going to benefit from.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Definitely. Well, all right, everybody. Next up, we're going to dive into Solution Systems' own Smart Comments app.